And what with the news of Robbie Dunne's guilty verdict earlier on this afternoon, we can hear the thoughts of PJA President David Bass, who was in conversation earlier with Stuart Machin.
You know, I wanted to come out and just say a few words. You know, I've obviously got this new role as the president of the PJA, and I feel some sort of responsibility to try and bring some sort of unity to jockeys and the PJA members. And I suppose the first thing, you know, I want to say about it is, from a personal point of view, before I might be accused of taking sides, but I'm not taking sides at all. From the start, I've said I get on very well with both Bryony and Robbie. I've got very good relationships with both of them. I probably know Robbie quite a bit better than Bryony, but I'm very good friends with Bryony's brother Hayden, and like I said, I've had a very good working relationship with Bryony for the past few years. And what I'd like to say about Robbie Dunne, I've known him very well the last few years. We've spoken a lot about various issues which have been some good, some very, very bad for the weighing room over the past couple of years. And Robbie's a very, very good man, and he's a family man who has his challenges and has, you know, the issues like we all do. But I'd just like to say, from a personal point of view, they're both very decent people, and, you know, I'm not taking sides.
Okay. Now, as things stand, the facts of the matter are that the panel has reached their conclusion. An independent panel has reached its conclusion, and have obviously handed down Robbie his punishment and found him guilty of those 4 charges. So that's not in dispute at the moment. Do you feel the way that it has been played out, and perhaps that the time that it has taken to reach a conclusion, has been a problem or an issue?
I think it's been an absolute disgrace, and I have to be careful I don't get too emotive about the whole thing. But
no, we've got to try and stay objective.
I feel the way it's been handled has been shocking, and there's a lot of bitter, angry people that are, you know, coming racing every day and working in the weighing room, and the language that has been used by the representative from the BHA and been put on the front page of our, you know, the racing's newspaper, is an absolute disgrace. To call our culture rancid is disgraceful, and, you know, there's certain things that you could use rancid for, and our facilities would be one of them. But to target our culture as rancid is not on, and it's very, very unfair to target the whole weighing room. And this has nothing to do with the individual case with Bryony and Robbie. That's, you know, that word has been used to target the whole weighing room, and it is grossly unfair. And I feel like the language from some of the press and the BHA is not on.
What would you say to the charge that was put at one stage of this feeling, this culture almost of a murder in the weighing room, that things go on but nothing is said, you know, what goes on stays within these walls, sort of thing?
Yeah, and I can see where people are coming from with that, but I can promise you now that there is no secrecy as far as jockeys, and especially senior jockeys, trying to make sure that the conduct in the weighing room is proper. And, you know, the PJA brought out a code of conduct which we will all try our best to uphold. And you know, none of us are condoning bullying, and none of us are condoning saying inappropriate things. But, you know, like I said, to target the whole weighing room with such disgusting language is completely unfair. And what I would say to those people going forward is, you know, we will all go out of our way to look after each other, and we will not tolerate any bullying or any inappropriate behaviour in the weighing room going forward.
Do you think that having a code of conduct, something concrete, something written down that people can look at and follow, will improve things, will help I'm not saying that you don't necessarily feel there was a huge problem to start with, but do you think having those guidelines there for people to follow is a positive way to go in the future?
Yes, I do, and that's something the PJA have done very quickly, and they've got that out there, which is great, and hopefully it'll be up in every weighing room so we can we know it's there. But as far as help is concerned, the BHA have given us very little help.
So is that a leadership issue, a guidance issue?
Yes,
for the BHA?
we've been led poorly. We've been led very, very poorly, and I've been talking to females in that weighing room today that they asked for better facilities 5 years ago, and we have not had them. They've asked for better facilities, better procedures, more protocols, and we have not had them. And the PJA have asked for better facilities all over the country for years, and it hasn't come about, and we've been led very poorly by the BHA on this, and you could argue that this might never have come about if there were better facilities in our weighing rooms, and some of our working environments are shocking.
In part, I was just going to come in there and say that no. I was just going to try and expand upon the point that you're making, in the sense that racing is a slightly unusual sport, in the sense that males and females compete directly against each other every day of the week. So it's not easy for racing to take a lead from other sports in terms of facilities, because you don't get that crossover of the sexes on a daily basis, which happens every day on a racecourse, which nobody ever thinks about. So I think is it a case of racing generally, whether it be the BHA and racecourses themselves, making that investment and being slow to catch up with the 21st century?
Yeah, I totally agree. And like you say, racing is, I don't want to come here and just criticise racing, because it's a wonderful sport that has given me an amazing career, and I've met amazing people from diverse backgrounds. So I don't want to criticise racing, but you are right in what you said about trying to get this sport into the 21st century, and I don't feel like we have been led properly to make the sport more professional, make the facilities more modern. It just hasn't been good enough. And another example, I bring up testing. The PJA call for more testing as far as drugs, alcohol. They called for that years ago, and it's only till now that we're getting more frequent testing. And it's
How
not good enough.
Should that be done on a daily basis, do you think, or just as a matter of routine, or randomly?
Yeah, I'm going off course a little bit.
No.
I think it should be far more frequent. I don't know. I'm not coming out and saying how often it should be, but.
But that would be one of the things, if we're trying to look ahead now and take something positive from this and say, well, how do we go forward from this? Because I think it's got to be a we, hasn't it? It's not, everybody in racing has got to be on board with this, whether it be the media, jockeys, the authorities, whatever. Yeah. How do we take this forward? That you see as one area, more frequent, more regular testing, and as a more immediate issue, an improvement in facilities as a matter of urgency.
Yeah, I think the facility thing is definitely urgent, and it's and it just hasn't. There's been no urgency at all with that sort of thing, but like you're right, we need to work together. As far as every single group in racing needs to work together to make it more professional, and make it more modern, and I just feel like we've been let down. And I'm sorry I've gone off course a little bit, but and more importantly, this whole thing, I think Bryony and Robbie Dunne have both been let down by the BHA. Like you say, for the length of time this has taken, and for all the other people being dragged into it, which then leads to horrendous language, which is totally unacceptable. Yeah, that's what I'd like to say, really.
And within the weighing room, within the four walls of the changing room, as a group, how do you go forward from this? How can you take this forward and try and get something positive out of what has been a terrible situation?
Well, I've obviously joined the PJA in my new role, and it's been very interesting. And there's a lot of people that working in the PJA that really want to improve everything as far as racing is concerned. And you know, and like, I've had conversations today with, you know, Paige Fuller's been, you know, she's been really good with the female jockeys, and she's been, you know, she's been flagging up certain things for a long time. So, you know, we're all sort of keen to move forward and make this sport more professional, more modern and better. But I just feel like we need strong leadership, and we haven't had it. And yeah, that's what we need. That's what we're lacking.
David, I appreciate that emotions are running high, but you've come out, you've been very lucid, very clear and objective in what you've been saying, so I appreciate your time, and I hope that we can move forward from this in a positive direction.
Thanks a lot, Stuart. Thank you.
An interesting reaction there from David Bass, the president of the PJA, what has been a turbulent day in British racing. And now I'm going to read a statement from the BHA, which has been released in the last half an hour or so following today's ruling of the independent disciplinary panel. And it is as such. The British Horseracing Authority welcomes the finding of the independent disciplinary panel that Jockey Robbie Dunne is in breach of 4 counts of Rule 19 and to impose an 18-month suspension upon him. In our view, this decision and the comments of the independent judicial panel reflect the seriousness of the accusations. It sends a clear message that conduct of this nature cannot be tolerated in any working environment within our sport. This case has been a groundbreaking one for British racing, the first of its kind, and it is important that it acts as a catalyst for further change within the industry. We understand that for the vast majority of those who work in the sport, and in particular in the jockey's weighing room, it is a positive, supportive, welcoming place. We recognise the pressures on those involved in the sport, and that temperatures will at times be raised. However, there is a line as to what is acceptable. It is essential that when something does go wrong, that people feel that they can call out bad behaviour and not be made to suffer in silence. The independent judicial panel chair voiced concerns regarding these issues in his judgment. We call on everyone in the industry to recognise this. By stepping forward to report the behaviour of which she was on the receiving end, Bryony Frost took a courageous step. We hope that others who may be in a similar position will feel comfortable doing the same. Improving workplace standards and well-being within the sport is an issue into which racing has invested significant time and resource in recent years. Nothing is more important than our people and our horses. The formation of an industry people board has helped focus attention on improving standards, education and training. Progress is being made on improving the facilities that our athletes use, in particular our female participants. The sport will soon be putting in place a collaborative cross-industry code of conduct. However, more can always be done. We must move forward from this case and define the sort of language and conduct that is acceptable in a place of work. This is about more than just the jockey's weighing room, but the whole industry. We must take positive steps across the sport to ensure that British racing is a welcoming place to work for everyone. We will issue more detail as to our next steps on this front in the near future. This was a difficult, sensitive and complex case with numerous witnesses. Charges for the case were lodged in April, but subsequent to this there were significant legal representations made by the defence solicitors which, in order to ensure fairness to all parties, had to be considered in full. The case has been handled with professionalism and this is reflected in the outcome. However, there are also lessons that can and will be learned. We will be reviewing the proceedings and speaking to the chair of the independent judicial panel regarding case management. It is important that we ensure that future cases are managed quickly in the interests of all parties. Finally, we recognise that this has been a difficult period for all involved, in particular for Robbie Dunne and for Bryony Frost. We ask that the privacy and well-being of both is now respected. It is important that both are now supported by the BHA, their colleagues and their representative body, the PJA. Steve, just to get some immediate reaction on both that and what David Bass was saying, what's your take on the whole day and the whole case as a whole?
Well, I'll concentrate first of all on what we heard David Bass saying. You're understandably emotional. I found that so depressing, to be honest with you. I found almost every word he said there depressing. The thing he seemed most upset about is that the culture, maybe ranted is too strong, maybe that's the wrong word, I don't know. But basically there was a criticism of the culture. It's not just this case. There's been criticism of the culture in the weighing room in the Freddie Tylicki case as well. They've been talking, about how you don't split on people if they do something wrong. It's like being a 15-year-old at school. I think it was really, but there wasn't one sense I got from David there that things are going to get better. I didn't get one sense that he thought that things were actually pretty bad. He says, we were under no circumstance we condone bullying. Well, look, I'm sorry, someone's just been found guilty of sustained bullying. Now, maybe he feels the decision is wrong, but an independent panel have found proof of bullying. That's what they found today. So where are all these seniors in the weighing room standing up? Where are they? I could have, if we'd been having this chat 2 weeks ago, I could have predicted 2 or 3 of the people who'd come on as defence counsels, or speaking up for the defence, some of the senior jockeys. I think it's typical of, I've been in this side of the camera for about 15 years and followed racing for whatever. I've always thought the environment, particularly on the jump side, is incredibly macho. Any criticism a jockey gets from outside, there's a ganging together and sticking up for him and hitting out other people. I don't see any evidence at all that it's changing, and I don't see any evidence in David Bass's, who's now got an important role in the PJA, no evidence there that they've learned anything from what we've sat through. It's intolerable that someone's had to put up with that for the last 18 months. Intolerable. If you were doing this work, you'd have people you could go to. There'd be or if you worked in a school, there's various stages you could go to get your case heard.
HR, yeah.
I mean, where were the PJA and all that? What was happening? Other than wanting the case to be closed, I can't see what positivity what positivity there is in their role. I just think the culture is clearly 20, 30, 40 years too old. We just had the Yorkshire Cricket Club. It's just, it's a similar thing. There's so many of our sports, you feel like, what happens in the changing room stays in the change. But that's not right. I'm sorry. It's 2021. That's not right. It isn't right that someone felt picked on and bullied for 18 months. Where were these people standing up for her if the culture is so good? So I think unless they're going to learn, maybe rancid was the wrong word, maybe that was too strong. Clearly there are problems, and they have got to get into the 21st century and quick. Otherwise, this self-policing, it doesn't work in anything. We've got it in Parliament at the moment as well. I mean, I hate it. It's not right. They're not capable of policing themselves. That's been proven, I think, by what we've heard over the last 2 weeks. So that's rant over.
It looks as though a transient metamorphosis is probably needed at some point, but a change is likely to be hard, at least when you hear comments from David Bass like that as well.
Well, he's got a really important role now. He's taken over. He is one of the links. The PGA should have a really important role in presenting problems and dealing with problems. But they've got to come from a point of view of being more open-minded than they seem to be. There seemed to be a real feeling that the worst crime here was anybody saying anything, rather than the crime of anything that might have happened. And I think that's a pretty unhealthy situation, personally. Yeah.